Assalamualaikum and hello. I am Mazliyana binti Zainal Arifin. In this video, I would like to share with you a pilot study that I conducted with my supervisors, Professor Madya Dr. Noshidra binti Mat Daud and Dr. Zamnah binti Hussein, entitled The Prompts for Intense Reflections or PIR, a pilot study investigating its face validity and feasibility. Although always went under-discussed, underused and underreported, a pilot study is, to many, an important element in a study. A pilot study is a small-scale research study that is conducted before the final scale study. Researchers did pilot study prior to their actual studies for a variety of reasons, with the general one being data from pilot study is used as guidance for researchers to make adjustments. Other reasons include to pretest a certain research instrument, to assist researchers in making estimations for the required time as well as the funding involved for the project, and to prepare researchers to whether their actual study will be feasible or not, which includes discussing potential hurdles in the main study or during the data collection stage. A lot of research has been done on the effect of reflective writing on critical thinking at work among interns. However, these studies were mostly done in clinical settings where they involved health practitioners. Some research was done in other settings for other work areas, but the participants were not given the proper guidance to make sure that they produced good quality reflections that are important to help inculcate thinking skills. Thus, a set of guiding questions called the Prompts for Intense Reflections or PIR was developed to assist social science interns to produce highly critical reflections. Particularly for this study, the developed PIR is tested of its face validity and feasibility before it is used for an actual study after going through two crucial stages, which are the development of the PIR as well as review from subject matter experts. This pilot study will be the last stage before the PIR is considered ready for use in the actual research. The objectives of the pilot study are to find out if the PIR is easily understood and appropriate, to find out if the interns are able to provide answers that are expected of them, and to find out if the actual study is feasible. For about 100 years now, the subject of critical thinking has been researched on and constantly thought the variety of ways to be taught. The idea of critical thinking was established by none other than Socrates and his followers, Plato and Aristotle. To John Dewey, critical thinking is defined as active, persistent, and careful consideration of a belief or supposed form of knowledge. And to Paul, critical thinking can be defined as the scaffolding of the mind. Regardless of how critical thinking is defined, it is believed that the end result of critical thinking is for one to make improvement. According to Paul, critical thinking can be developed by frequently studying and critiquing it. Additionally, Fassion and Dune claimed that one of the most crucial outcomes of higher education courses is critical thinking. Incorporating tasks and activities that require critical thinking skills in class is something that is common in order for educators to assist students to develop critical thinking skills. One of the many methods used to incorporate critical thinking skills is writing reflections. Writing journals help the writer to stand outside the experience to see it more objectively and to become detached from emotional outcomes. Although the connection between critical thinking and skilled reading and writing is natural, many students wrote reflections that were merely descriptive. And due to this, some researchers decided to provide students with some kind of scaffolding to write critical reflections. A survey method was used to investigate the face validity and feasibility of this instrument. Participants were given a set of the PIR and questionnaire via Google Form, which used a 4-point Likert scale as advised by Rubio et al., ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree to measure their agreement or disagreement on each item. In order to get more information from them, an open-ended question was also included. The questionnaire consisted of 8 close-ended questions and 1 open-ended question. The participants were also requested to write a reflection based on the PIR. This pilot involved 9 undergraduate students from the Bachelor of Applied Language Studies, Honours, English for Professional Communication, Academy of Language Studies, UiTM Shah Alam. Although it seems as though the number of participants in is insufficient. Herzog stated that in order to assess clarity of instructions or item wording, acceptability of formatting, or ease of administration, a sample of 10 or even fewer may suffice. The data obtained from this study was analyzed using quantitative descriptive analysis. A simple calculation was used to convert the quantitative data, questions 1 to 8, to numeric value to interpret the data received from the survey form. As for question 9, since it was an open-ended question, each response was taken into consideration in order to gain more valuable feedback to improve the instrument. And for the reflections, since the rubric was still in development and had not been finalized, the reflections were assessed based on the length, respondents' comprehension on the prompts, as well as the ability to provide answers as required by the question. The 8 questions represented by a 4-point Likert scale ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree are listed as below. And for the results and discussions. As can be clearly seen, for all the items from 1 to 8, none of the respondents chose strongly disagree for any of the item. Only one respondent chose disagree for items 1 and 2 and 3, and 2 respondents chose disagree for items 4 and 7. Thus, it can be said that all the items had high percentage of agreement by the respondents. For question 9, out of all the respondents, 5 respondents gave comments and suggestions regarding the PIR. For suggestion number 1, it was accepted and it was added in the instruction in order to ensure that students have a clearer idea on the reflections that they have to write before they even start writing. For suggestions 2 and 3, it was decided that they were kept as they are because those questions were first simplified so that students will not be overwhelmed by the total number of the questions in the PIR. As for suggestion number 4, it was later decided that the previous suggestion or the previous version would be maintained. 2 reasons for this. One is if the instructions were written in bullet points, it would be too long and it would not fit one page. And 2, students would still be able to provide their answers based on what is required of them if they use the prompts as guidance, even if they miss any point while reading the instructions. Therefore, this suggestion was dismissed. The respondents also gave some positive and encouraging comments as listed on the slide. Looking at the questions that they wrote, in short, their responses were satisfying. Since the rubric has not been finalized, as mentioned, the reflections were assessed based on the length of the reflections, students' understanding of the prompts, and their capability in answering the prompts. In terms of the length, it was found that reflections written more than 500 words consisted of all the answers to the PIR as opposed to the reflections written below 500 words. This has helped in approving that the instruction to write within 500 words is indeed appropriate in order to ensure that students answer the questions in the PIR. The other aspects that needed to be examined is the reflections themselves. Fortunately, reading the reflections by the respondents gave an assurance that not only the respondents understood their tasks, but the prompts were also suitable to be used as guidance for interns to write their reflections, as the majority of them achieved explaining clearly their experiences during internship based on the PIR. Since the pilot study received mainly positive responses from the respondents, some adjustments and improvements were made to the PIR in order to make it clearer and more understandable by interns, and they can finally write critical reflections and not merely descriptions of their working experiences. It is hoped that with the improved version of the PIR, the process of collecting data in the actual study will be smooth and the interns' reflections using the PIR as guidance can eventually assist them in elevating their critical thinking skills, which is the main objective of the actual study. With that, I thank you.